Hey, what is going on guys? I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and in today's video I'm going to be taking you guys through the top 5 meta class setups for Season 4 of Reloaded. Now in the video today we're not going to have any gameplay whatsoever. I'm literally just going to run you guys through all 5 class setups. Now if you guys want to skip to any particular class setup, there will be timestamps down below in the description. And before we jump into them, I'd just like to remind you all to leave a like on the video if you found it useful, and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you guys are new around here. Now without further ado, let's jump into the first class setup, and we're going to be going with the KSV. Now the KSV outputs a lot of damage with a moderate rate of fire. However, this high damage output does have its cons. There is a fair amount of recoil, and it is mainly for those shorter ranges. So in the build today we're going to try and maximize recoil control to make it as easy as possible for you guys to shoot. Now for pretty much every single one of these class setups I'm going to show you guys a 5 attachment build, but we're always going to start off with our gunfighter build. Now starting off, because it is an SMG, I'm going to leave it without an optic, but for all of the SMGs I've left one attachment space free just in case you guys want to run an optic. And if you do want to use an optic, I recommend the Kepler Micro Reflex. It's just super clean and really nice sight. But moving into our first attachment, and for the muzzle we're going to be running the compensator. Now the compensator gives you a lot of vertical recoil control, and as I said before, the KSV does have a fair amount of kick to it, so we want to maximize the recoil control. You could opt for the ported compensator for that extra first shot recoil control, but it has one less in terms of vertical, so I don't think it is worth it. Now moving into our second attachment, and we're going to be running the long barrel. Now this is going to be a staple on pretty much every single SMG. I don't think that having extra bullet velocity on SMGs is that important, so in my opinion you need to maximize the damage range as much as possible. Now moving into our next attachment, and we're going with the G grip. Now this is one of the newer attachments which was released in Season 3. I've been playing around with this and the Precision 4 grip because that is one of the attachments that's received a buff in Season 4 Reloaded, but the G grip offers that recoil stabilization as well as the horizontal recoil control that the Precision 4 grip offers. Now moving into the next attachment, we're going to be running the extended mag. Now this is going to be on every single class. It just gives you more bullets so you don't have to reload as often. Moving into the next attachment, and we're going with the ergonomic grip. Now you want to have this on every single SMG. It does increase your ADS speeds as well as increasing your dive and slide to fire speeds, and as an SMG player you want to be making as much use of the omni movement system as humanly possible. You want to be sliding and flying around the map as quick as possible to try and catch people off guard. Onto our next attachment, and we're going to be running the infiltrator stock. I would probably switch between the balance stock and the infiltrator stock, but the infiltrator stock offers that extra aim walking movement speed, so basically you're going to be a lot quicker when you're strafing left and right in and out of cover, making you a harder target to hit. You activate your aim assist rotationally, which means you need to be moving left and right to activate the aim assist. Now moving into our last attachment, and we're going to be running the recoil springs. This just gives us that extra horizontal and vertical recoil control, making the KSV a lot easier to handle and reducing that overall kick as much as possible. Now if you guys don't want to run gunfighter and you'd rather have either overkill or an extra perk, then I would just remove recoil springs and the infiltrator stock, and the remaining attachments should be enough to reduce that recoil to make it as easy as possible to shoot. Now that's going to do it for the KSV class, so we're going to jump into our next class now, and the next class we're going to be looking at is the LC10. Now I've just done a new class setup video for the LC10 and I've modified it even more just to make it a lot more mobile. Now the LC10 is a lot easier to use than the KSV. The accuracy and the range of the LC10 is pretty decent for an SMG. It does however have an average mobility and slow handling for its class, so you're not going to be quite as mobile in comparison to say the KSV or the Jackal. Now moving into the class setup itself, and just like the KSV we're not going to be running an optic, but if you guys choose to do so you can do. But moving into the muzzle, and we're going to be running the monolithic suppressor. This just keeps us off the minimap and increases both bullet velocity and the damage range. It does however add a moderate weight increase and affects your agility, so if you guys don't like this then I'd probably swap this out for say just the normal suppressor or even the compensator if you don't mind being on the minimap. Now moving into the second attachment, and we're going to be just like the KSV running the long barrel. Again, it just increases our damage range and reduces the time to kill at those medium to longer ranges. Now into our next attachment, and again we're going to be using the G grip. We're using this primarily because of the recoil stabilization, but it does also offer that horizontal recoil control, which is always nice and greatly accepted. Into our next attachment, and we're going to be running again the extended mags. Just gives us more bullets so we don't have have to reload as often, and we can get into a lot more gunfights. Onto the next attachment, and you guys can probably see a theme. We're going to be using the ergonomic grip again, and we're going to be using it for its ADS speed buffs, as well as that increase in both dive and slide to fire speed. And again, for the stock, we're going to be using the infiltrator stock just to increase that strafing movement speed. And the final attachment, we're going to be running the recoil springs, again for that horizontal and vertical recoil control. Now, the LC10 kind of is one of those weapons where I'm a little bit on the fence about using the gunfighter perk, mainly because the recoil isn't that bad whatsoever. So you could definitely get away with removing the recoil springs and the infiltrator stock, and you'd still have an amazing class setup here, guys. It would definitely be able to hold its own, allowing you guys to have an extra perk or the overkill wildcard. Now that we've run through the LC10 class, we're going to jump into our next class setup, and we're going to have the first assault rifle of our top 5 meta, and it's going to be another one of our newer weapons which was released with season 4 alongside the LC10, and it's the FFAR. Now, unlike the SMGs, we are going to have an optic for this. The iron sights are fine, but with assault rifles you tend to take those medium to longer range gun battles, so you want to have as clear a sight as possible, and the red dot is absolutely perfect. And in this case, we're going to be using the Kepler Micro Reflex. It's just by far the cleanest sight, but you guys could go for the Volsky Reflex, the Merlin Reflex. They're all viable options, but I just feel like the Kepler is by far the cleanest. Now moving into the next attachment, and we're going to be running the compensator. Now if you guys are more than comfortable with the amount of recoil and you can handle it, then I'd probably go for the suppressor or the monolithic just to keep you guys off the radar. But running the compensator offers you guys the most vertical recoil control, as the FFAR isn't the easiest to handle due to its extremely high fire rate, so I would definitely opt for the compensator. Now moving into our next attachment, and we're going to be running the long barrel. Again, just like all the other classes, this increases the damage range, and you definitely want this for your ARs, as you are going to be taking those medium to longer range battles, so you want to be able to reduce that time to kill at those longer ranges, especially if we're going to be adding all these attachments to reduce the amount of recoil and basically turn it into a laser beam. You want to be able to output that damage at those longer ranges. Moving into our next attachment, and again we're going to be running the G grip, and just like usual, this is mainly for that recoil stabilization, as the FFAR does fire extremely fast. You want to be able to control the recoil, you don't want it to just spit upwards, so having this helps a lot. And that extra horizontal recoil control does help a lot, so that your spray pattern is just basically straight up, so that if you do want to control the spray pattern, you just hold down slightly on your right stick and you should be able to control it fairly easily. Now moving into our next attachment, and we're going to be going with the extended mag, just like usual. It just gives you those extra bullets so you can get into more gunfights, and especially with the FFAR shooting as fast as it does, you don't want to be reloading as often as possible. Onto our next one, and we're going to be running the commando grip. Now this is a little bit different from our SMGs, and I would tend to use this on pretty much every single AR. It improves both your jumping and sprint to fire speeds instead of your slide and dive to fire speeds, and this is important because as an AR you're probably not going to be sliding into gunfights. You're going to want to be posted up taking those longer range battles rather than poking someone at close range with your gun. It also offers ADS speed for both jumping and normal, which will just make you feel a little bit more snappier, helping you to lock onto someone a little bit quicker, and hopefully giving you guys a little bit of an edge when you're taking your 1v1 gunfights. Moving into our next attachment, and we're going to be running the infiltrator pad. Again, this is going to be one of those attachments that's on pretty much every single gunfighter class. Just gives you that strafing movement speed, makes you harder to hit, and hopefully activates that rotational aim assist a lot easier. And again, just like the other classes, we're going to be having recoil springs as our last attachment, just for that horizontal and vertical recoil control. Now, if I was to not run gunfighter, which I wouldn't recommend for the FFAR, again, I would probably just remove the recoil springs and the infiltrator pad, and then maybe just the Kepler Micro Reflex, just because the iron sights aren't terrible, so you're not really going to be hindered too much. Onto our next gun, and it's going to be another SMG, and we're going to be looking at the C9, which is the MP5, which is just a super well-rounded gun with basically just average everything, but it's just really easy and simple to use. You guys won't have a problem whatsoever with the C9. Now starting off with the first attachment, and we're going to be looking at the muzzle, and we're going to be having the monolithic suppressor just to keep you guys off the minimap, increase bullet velocity and damage range, and hopefully reducing that time to kill at those medium ranges. Into Into our next attachment, we're going to be running the long barrel like pretty much every single class, just to increase the damage range so that you guys can kill a lot quicker at those longer ranges. Into our next attachment, and again the G grip, just to help with recoil stabilization and horizontal recoil control. Into our next attachment, we're going to be running the extended mag 1. Again, pretty straightforward. Extra bullets means you don't have to reload as often, so we're going to be using this on every single class. Rear grip, like I said before, on every SMG you want to be using the ergonomic grip to improve ADS speeds and your dive and slide to fire speeds. As an SMG, like I've said, you're going to be running around the map, so you want to have your gun up as quick as possible when you come out of a dive or a slide. And finally, the last two attachments are going to be the infiltrator stock like usual, just improves your strafing ADS speed, making you harder to hit and activating that rotational aim assist. And finally, the recoil springs just gives you that nice booster in horizontal and vertical recoil control. And finally, moving into our last class setup, we're going to be looking at another AR, and it's one of the newer ARs which was released in season 3, and it's going to be a CR56 AMAX. And I remember when this was first released, it was absolutely insane. It got kind of like mega nerfed at the start of season 4, but with some of the buffs to the season 4 reloaded update, it's definitely a lot more usable and viable in the current meta, and it still has a mega high damage output, so maximizing the range and mobility is absolutely key here. Starting off, and we're going to be running the Kepler Micro Reflex, fairly straightforward. This is probably going to be a very similar, if not the exact same build to our previous AR. And for the muzzle, we're going to be running the compensator just to help with that vertical recoil control. And unlike a lot of the other classes, the compensator on the CR56 does add extra recoil stabilization, so paired with the G grip, we're getting a hell of a lot of recoil stabilization as well as horizontal and both vertical recoil control, which is always very nice because the nerf actually added quite a lot of recoil and made it very, very hard to control. But taking one step back and looking at the barrel, we're going to be going with the reinforced barrel just to increase both damage range and bullet velocity, just to hopefully reduce that time to kill at those medium to longer ranges, as it is an assault rifle after all. Now jumping into our rear grip, and like the FFAR, we're going to be running the commando grip, giving us that boost in both ADS and jumping ADS speeds, as well as improving both jumping and sprint to fire speeds. So hopefully you guys won't get caught out sprinting quite as often, and you'll win your 1v1 gun battles a lot easier. And moving into our last two attachments, like pretty much every single other class, if you've noticed the pattern by now, we're going to be running the infiltrator stock just to improve the strafing movement speed, and the recoil springs, which is going to be absolutely key because, as I've already said, it got a big recoil control nerf in season 4, so we're going to have to add as much recoil control as possible. And the recoil springs, as I've mentioned, got a buff with season 4 reloaded, making it easier for the CR56 to be controlled. Now if you weren't running gunfighter and you're just going with those 5 attachments, I would remove the infiltrator stock, the Kepler Micro Reflex, just because the iron sights aren't too bad on the CR56, and then I'd get rid of the extended mag. Now it has got 30 mag size, so it's relatively useful. The fire rate isn't too fast on the CR56, but you want to keep as many recoil controlling attachments as humanly possible, so the compensator, the G grip and the recoil springs all have to stay to make this a lot more manageable and easy to use. Now of course, all these class setups are open to interpretation, and you guys should build them exactly how you want to and what best suits your playstyle. Maybe some of you like the more faster pace, so you want to be able to fly around the map even with an AR, so maybe swap out the commando grip for ergonomic grip, and then maybe the vice versa for your SMGs. I definitely wouldn't recommend that. I'd keep the ergonomic grip on pretty much every SMG, but again, just tailor these classes to how you guys play, and hopefully they've been a good base for you guys going forward. Now if you guys have made it this far and you did enjoy the video and you found it useful, be sure to leave a like. Also hit that subscribe button if you guys are new around here, and as usual there's going to be a secret phrase for this video, and the secret phrase is going to be Ruby Cactus, so be sure to comment that down below and I'll like and heart every single comment and reply to every single comment also. And with all that being said guys, I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll see you all in the next one.